In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to use an async task loader to download JSON data from a web server and then deserialize it so that you can do whatever you need to do with it in your app. I'm going to use the app that we started in class. I'm not going to make any changes to this UI, although I will be making some changes to the activity. One other big change from class is I've taken all the networking code that we discussed in class and I've abstracted it out into its own utility class called network connection. And so this class is going to do all the heavy lifting as far as sending a request to the web service and then decoding the response. I'm not going to spend any time talking about it except to say that I have this little utility that I'll be using. Okay, so the first step is we need to create our async task loader. Now, an async task loader is a lot like a async task. It even has some similar methods that you have to override, or similar sounding methods that you need to override. So let's go ahead and create one now. New Java class. We'll call it LOC for Library of Congress. Async task loader. Then we're going to click OK. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to extend our parent class, which is async task loader, and we're going to return a string. Let's go ahead and hit Alt and select the correct parent class. We get this nice, helpful little red emergency light bulb. We're going to click implement the methods. You'll notice that we have only one method that is required here. So that's load in background. We're going to click OK. But we're actually going to do a few other things as well. You'll notice that one of the things that Android Studio yells at us about is to say that there's no default constructor available in async task loader. And that's because even though it's not required when you click that red light bulb to have a default constructor, it is actually required. You have to be able to call the super method for a constructor. So in this case, we're going to create our own constructor. So let's see here. I'm going to say have a couple of private fields. So private string. We'll say query string, and then public LOC async task loader, and the constructor that we create needs to take at least one context object, and this is required, and whatever else we're going to pass along into our network call. In this case, we're going to be passing a query string, which you'll see more of in just a little bit. So we'll call this a string query string. So and one of the first things we have to do is call super context. So that's why context is required for any constructor that you provide your async task loader. Right? Then here we're just going to say this dot query string equals query string. This is the string that we're going to pass along to our call to our web API that will get us data. Now the web API, I'm going to take a brief moment to talk about it. The web API that I'm using is the Library of Congress Picture Search API, which allows you to pass in give it a name or a place, and it provides you this nice JSON formatted data that corresponds to individual images in the U.S. Library of Congress. So let me see if I can grab one here for you. Isn't that cool? It's nice for demonstrating JSON operations because it doesn't require an API key, which is kind of nice. Okay, so, but one of the things that it does require is it does require a single query string, and has two parameters. One which we're going to set to JSON because we want JSON as our return type. But other than that, that's all you really need to know about this data source. Although, that being said, we will probably be coming back to look at this output later on when we need to figure out how to deserialize the data it responds back to us. But for now, we'll just go ahead and go back to Android Studio. And this is where we're going to store the query string that we're going to send to the Library of Congress. We have our load in background method, and that's going to what will actually start the network operation, or this is where we're going to start our network operation. So to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to say, let's have return network connection get data, and then we're going to pass in a couple of things. One, we're going to have a string, which is going to be our base URL. And let's go take a look. Base URL is this right here. And yep. So our base URL is this. And then we're going to pass it a series of parameters. And so this call is going to look like this: base URL, comma. Oh, there we go. Simple base URL, and then Q, and then query string, then FO, then JSON. Oh, JSON. There we go. Just like that. So I'm using that string ... parameter syntax that we saw in class earlier to make this a little bit easier on myself. But suffice to say, what network connection is going to do is it's going to contact this base URL, and it's going to pass in the following parameter strings, or URL parameters. Okay. So again, pretty straightforward here. Not a lot of code. And then finally, and this is the part that is a little weird. In order to start the async task loader doing its job, you need to call force load. And so async task loader is a two-step process. One is where you basically define the job that you want to create, the work that you want to do, and then you're going to actually start the job. And that's going to be in this overridden method here, onStart loading. So you're going to create a method that you're going to override called onStart loading, and in onStart loading, you're going to call force load. This is what's going to actually start the job running. So here's all the code that we need in our async task loader. We could do our deserialization here. Maybe we'll do that once we actually start getting data. But for now, this is a good start. Now, the thing about using async task loaders as opposed to, say, an async task is that in order to use the async task loader, you actually have to implement an interface that has a bunch of hooks for the async task loader. So let me demonstrate. The interface is loader manager dot loader callbacks, and in this case we want it to return a string. And you'll notice we got the red squiggles. Save it, and hopefully it'll give me a chance to. All right, so it says it wants me to be declared abstract or implement the abstract method on create loader and loader callback. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to come down here, and we're going to add the required methods. So we have this one. Oops. So that's going to be, let's see here, LOC, async task loader, this, and query string. Let's see here, return new. That's where okay, there we go. So we're going to have this on create loader. Then we need two other things that we're going to have to override. So one is on load finished, and that's where we're going to do the work after the job is done processing. And then finally, there's an on loader reset, which does what it sounds like, but I'm not going to be discussing that in this video, so we're just going to leave that one alone. So this is the method that actually starts the work in our activity, and then this is the method that gets called when our work is done and is completed, right? So there's one more thing that we need to do, and that is that we need to actually start the async task loader. Now, as you may remember from class, one of the benefits of an async task loader is that it can be restarted after your activity has had an activity lifecycle event. So in the situation where the user has tilted their device and caused the activity to go through its full cycle and redraw, rather than having to go and fetch all the data back over again, you can just restart the loader, and if that data has already been grabbed, you can get it right back. Now, this does require the use of an ID, and you can get really fancy with the IDs that you assign to your loaders, but you know what, you don't necessarily have to. I suppose it really comes down to how many loaders you have. If you have a lot of loaders, then you're going to need some sort of ID management. But for our purposes, it's really quite simple. So let's go ahead and get our loader. Well, first we're actually going to create a bundle, because our loaders require a bundle, or at least the interface that we use to call our loader requires a bundle. So we're going to call this just bundle equals a new bundle. So this may look familiar from the readings on how to pass data between fragments. It's the same class. So bundle dot put string. Let's do so query string is going to be our key, and our value will be, let's say, Gettysburg. Right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to call get support loader manager dot restart loader, and we're going to give it an ID, which we're going to give it a 0. We're going to pass in the bundle. And then we're going to give it a context, which of course is this. This is, well, not a context rather, but a reference to a class that implements the loader callbacks, which is this. So and that's what it is. All right, so we've now added the code to our button so that when we click, it's going to send the query to the Library of Congress, get a value, and then it is going to create a loader, and it's going to get the query string out of, it's going to create a loader, and then it's going to get the query string out of the bundle that we passed to it, and then send off the request. And then here's where we're actually going to do something with the request. So for now, we'll just get the whole request and we'll just shove it right into that text queue. So results.set text equals s. Not going to be pretty, but we'll get to the deserialization part in just a minute. So let's go ahead and save. Let's go ahead and stop the current version of our app and then restart it. Oh, and then restart it. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and start our task. Hey, and there we go. All that data from the Library of Congress. Neat. All right, so we've used an async task loader to get this data. And what's cool is that if we tilt the data, and now, of course, our activity has restarted. When we click it to get its data, super fast, right? No danger of memory leaks. The data is already prefetched for us. It just works. So let's go ahead and go back here. Okay, back and back. There we go. All right. So now let's go ahead and go through the process of actually parsing the response. And so there are easier ways of deserializing JSON data that you get from a web API. But for the purposes of the homework and also in case you need to roll your own, I think it's really helpful for you to understand how to parse JSON data in Java. And it's actually pretty easy. And as a matter of fact, to just take a quick step aside, if you have to choose between getting your data in XML and getting your data in JSON, my own personal opinion, pick JSON. Why? Two main reasons. One is that working with JSON in Android is fantastically easier than working with XML in an Android context. And two, JSON just tends to be a much smaller payload. But those two big reasons, I think in themselves kind of speak for themselves. So, all right. What we're going to do here is we're going to change this code a little bit. So let's go ahead and now we're going to have to contain this in a try-catch block because we might raise an exception with our JSON parsing. So exception E, and then we'll do, let's see here, do we have a tag yet? Let's create a tag, private final static tag, or string tag equals main activity. So let's see here, and then log.e tag e.get localized message. So in case anything goes wrong, we'll be able to look in the logcat and see what happened. Okay, so let's go ahead and start decoding this string, right? This response that we get back. So we're going to capture everything in a JSON object. And we're going to call it, let's call it root object. Equals new JSON object .s. And that's as simple as that. The process for parsing a string into a JSON object in Java, your root object, is really just passing in the string as a constructor for JSON object. It's really quite simple. Now, the difficult part comes in looking at the JSON object, understanding the relationships of the data sources, the data inside the fields and data inside the JSON object, and then pinpointing the data that you want. So in our case, we want to get the first result from our query. And so we send a query Gettysburg, and we need to find, let's see here, there is, the top level fields are search, it's not what we want, focus, no, views, no, facets, no, it's not what we want, links, nope, suggestions, nope, pages, nope, collection, then, results. So we're going to want to get the array that is set to the results field. So to get that, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new a JSON array, which is called, we'll call it results equals root object dot get JSON array, and call it, and we'll get the key results. That, double check, make sure right. Results. Just be careful, we'll copy and paste it. All right, so this will return to us the array of results. And then let's get the first result, which let's take another look at that, which is a JSON object. All right. So let's do JSON object first result equals results, and we'll get this. Oh, actually, that's right. That's results.get JSON object, and then there we go. Then that'll get us our first result. And then we can, let's see here. Now the next value we want to get is, let's get the image. Let's get the full image. So we're going to get the object that's set to image, which is set to a value called, and that has a value called full. That's what we're going to want to get. So we're going to want to go results, image, and then full. So let's do JSON object image equals first results dot get JSON object image. Is that right? Yep, image. And then JSON object full image URL equals image dot get JSON get JSON object, and that's going to be full, right? Full. And that should get that. Actually, that would be get string. No, in this case we want to dot get string. There we go. Full. All right, and then string, and then we're going to set this full image to our results. So let's go ahead and declare full image right here. and then we'll set the value full image URL. All right. So we've done some really simple JSON parsing in Java. You can see it can be a little bit tedious because you need to go through each level in the object in order to select the data that you need. But that is how it is. So let's go ahead and restart our app. And then start our task. And there we go. Look at that. It gives us some data that we selected. Okay, so we've seen how to create an async task loader. And we've seen how to do some simple JSON parsing in Java. Now for the last little step here, we're going to look at how to check to make sure that the device is actually connected to the internet. And again, like I mentioned in class, there are really three concerns that you have with network connectivity. One is which type of network you're connected to. So whether you are connected to a Wi-Fi or a cellular network. Two, what the signal strength is. So whether it's good or bad. And then three, whether you're actually connected or not. So you might just not be connected at all. So for the homework, I only really care that you check to make sure that the device is connected. But as you go and become professionals, you will want to be aware that there are these three nuanced things to be aware of. So what we're going to do is right here and on click, we're going to first check to see if the device is actually connected. So to do that, we need to get the connectivity manager equals, let's see here. We need to connectivity manager dot get system service, and then we're going to context dot connectivity service, just like that. So don't worry, this is all contained in the code lab assigned for this week's readings. And then once we have the connectivity manager, which is a singleton, we're then going to get network info. And it's simply manager dot get network, get active network info. Right? So now here's two things that we want to do is that first we want to make sure that network info or that the info object actually exists, because if it is null, then we don't have any connection. And then once we know that it actually is an actual object and not null, not set to a null pointer, then we can get its the current setting of the connection, whether it's connected or not. Ooh, that was a mouthful. All right, so we're going to say if info is not equal to null and info dot is connected, then we're going to do all this, and then else let's do results dot set text. Let's do get resources dot get resources dot get string, do r dot string dot no connection, and we'll go and define that string right here, not connected. All right. Okay, so reading this, what we're going to do is we're going to get a reference to the connectivity manager. And then we're going to get some info about the current state of the current active network. And then depending on whether this actually exists, this object, and whether it says that we're connected, then we'll try to get the data. If not, we're going to show a string that basically says you're not connected to the internet. So let's go ahead and give this a quick try. And we're going to start task. Okay, it brings up the data, which it should because we're connected to the internet. So now let's go ahead and make things a little bit more interesting by turning on airplane mode. And we're going to start the task again. Oh, and there we go. Tells us we're not connected. All right. So that's all for this video. We've looked at async task loaders. We've looked at parsing JSON data in Java, and we've seen how to check to see whether a device is connected. Hope this video was helpful, and I will see you all in class.